What if everything you know about ancient civilizations has been filtered, censored, or erased? What if there was once a global empire of knowledge so advanced, so widespread, that today it is written off as myth? Tonight, we explore Tartaria, the civilization history claims never existed. Brace yourself for questions that can't be ignored. The whispers of Tartaria began in obscure corners of the internet, but they are rooted in real photographs, old maps, and architectural oddities that seem out of place. Mansions with enormous domes, colossal gates, ornate ironworks in remote towns, structures many claim are too large, too advanced for local builders of their era. Some mapmakers of the 18th and 19th centuries show places labeled Tartary or Great Tartary, stretching over Siberia, Central Asia, parts of Eastern Europe. These maps are not fictional. They appear in atlases published by both European and Russian cartographers. One curious example, the Grand Tour postcards from early 1900s feature hotel ballrooms and train stations with ornate pillars and domes, seemingly match those in industrial cities of Europe. And yet local history books give no record of who built them or why. Speculation arises whether during colonial or Tsarist expansions, these grand works were removed from local memory. Architects and urban archaeologists note similar design features: massive arches, ornate brickwork, colossal windows that are not consistent with local designs of the recorded era. Discrepancies appear in building records, often omitted or destroyed. Historians warn many sources rely on conjecture, pareidolia, or misattribution. But even mainstream scholarship acknowledges anomalies. The Trans-Siberian Railway passes structures built with masonry techniques difficult to replicate at high-latitude cold weather zones. There are brickwork styles in colonial America that echo Eastern domes. And while these similarities don't prove a single global empire, they demand explanation. As the legend of Tartaria grew, so did the claims of its erasure, that old photographs were airbrushed, histories retold, local museums silent. In the next chapter, we peel back what proponents claim are evidence and what academics say in response. Supporters of Tartaria lay great emphasis on architecture, ornate structures with classical columns, giant domes, towers, spires, seldom seen in small frontier towns, recorded in 19th century travelogues. A famous photo shows a large exposition building with domes and arches in a city once described in period papers as Prairie Town. Some claim these structures existed before modern renovations, and yet no official blueprint or architect's name remains. In many cases, local records list only the date a structure was refurbished, not its original construction. Old postcards and photographs are central to the mystery. The 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, for example, displayed grand neoclassic buildings, temporary exhibition structures with domes. Many suggest these captured architectural styles, then lost or destroyed, leaving only memory. Meanwhile, Imperial Russia built palaces with vast domes, some preserved, many not. Also noteworthy, some industrial cities in late 19th century US have Union stations and water towers of scale and decoration outlasting boilerplate structures. Enthusiasts draw visual parallels, comparing photos side by side of distant buildings that appear similar in craftsmanship.
Yet every piece of evidence has counters. Historians point out many grand buildings were products of short-lived fairs or expositions, never intended for permanence, constructed from temporary materials. Some domes were destroyed or modified over time. Photographs often miscaptioned, postcards idealized.
When records fade, people tell stories. In remote towns, elders speak of a time before the Great Change, when a grand civilization spanned continents. These oral histories often mention knowledge of advanced masonry, global trade, strange devices, and technology lost in cataclysms. In northern Asia, legends refer to cities swallowed by snow or fire. In North America, some indigenous oral traditions mention stone cities built before colonial arrival. Are these memories of Tartaria or memories interpreted through modern lenses? The human mind craves continuity. When local archives are damaged by fire, war, or neglect, myth begins to fill the void. These narratives are emotionally compelling. They speak to injustice, loss, identity. Some families, descendants of early builders, say their grandparents had memoirs, homes, blueprints, but lost them during revolution or forced resettlements. Skeptics reply, nostalgia and pattern-seeking often produce false connections. Many historical societies emphasize the importance of verifying via primary sources. For example, building permits, city council minutes, newspapers of record. In many cities once thought to have lost Tartarian buildings, restoration projects traced the architecture to known architects and local funds. Additionally, climate, usage, and urban decay explain many anomalies. But myth and fact intertwine in such a way that separating them becomes itself part of the story. Next, we turn to documented collapse of structures and archaeological loss. History is littered with destruction, fires, wars, earthquakes. In 1906, the San Francisco earthquake destroyed many ornate buildings. Many homes' upper floors were lost. In Europe, world wars bombed cities with historic architecture. Fires in colonial towns such as Halifax, Nova Scotia, 1917, erased certain buildings built in decorative Edwardian or Victorian style. These weren't labeled Tartarian, but after destruction, local memory recalls grander detail than photos suggest. Also, in many cold regions, frost and freeze-thaw cycles damage masonry and decorative facades. Without maintenance, ornate building parts collapse, domes fall, stone crumbles. Climate plays a silent role in erasure. Further, political upheaval, revolutions, regime changes often targeted architectural symbols. In Russia, after the 1917 revolution, many palaces, exhibition halls, and churches were repurposed, stripped, or destroyed or repainted. Sometimes facades preserved, interiors gutted. Archaeology confirms many structures believed to be Tartarian were documented before damage. Local reconstruction projects, cities like St. Petersburg, New Orleans, use photographs, city plans, newspaper archives to rebuild what was lost. In some cases, missing plans resurface in archives in Europe. Yet many towns never archived those plans, leaving a void. The loss is real. The built environment changed. But does that loss mean global cover-up
or simply neglect. In the next chapter, we compare what new scientific evidence can tell us.
Today, science gives us better eyes. Satellite imagery, LiDAR scanning, ground-penetrating radar, all tools historians never had before. In jungles, desert, beneath water, lost foundations are revealed where visible surface shows only wilderness. In old towns thought to have no records, LiDAR has exposed structures beneath vegetation, often showing grid layouts, long walls, domed foundations. Some substructures match images believed by Tartaria proponents to be original. But scientific methodology demands more than visual similarity. Dendrochronology, carbon dating, architectural materials analysis all help date when parts of structures were built or modified. For instance, wood samples from old roof beams in some colonial-era buildings show later timbers built on older bases, confirming renovation rather than a whole lost civilization. Chemical analysis of paint and mortar often reveal multiple layers added over decades. These findings often undermine the idea of massive ancient global Tartaria, but sometimes validated smaller-scaled advanced architecture earlier than local histories recorded. Also, genetic studies are beginning to trace local populations with lineage continuity in regions tied to early builders. Some coastal Levantine, North African, and Central Asian populations show DNA markers consistent with earlier settler waves. Cultural artifacts, pottery styles, trade beads, glasswork match designs once thought exotic, now found locally. Museums are republishing local histories, restoring ornate buildings, educating people about forgotten craftsmen. The combination of myth, hard data, and community memory is reopening doors history once closed. In our final chapter, we'll examine the implications. What does it mean for identity, memory, and the stories we choose to believe? As the moon rises over broken domes and decaying facades, tonight consider this: buildings don't lie. They may hide truths, but they preserve markers, carvings, foundations, masonry lines that speak louder than myths. When a city's layout, its gates, its plazas, bear architectural features far grander than local lore suggests, perhaps what was forgotten was never truly gone. Perhaps the memory was buried, waiting for tools, for voices brave enough to ask questions. What we once dismissed as fanciful bluster may hold kernels of very real history. Justice for those forgotten doesn't require proving every grand claim of Tartaria, but acknowledging anomalies, restoring stories to local people, preserving what remains. History for Sleep isn't about choosing sides. It is about learning curiosity, honoring evidence, and embracing mystery. If we open archives, value oral history, and let science test myth, we may not find a single global empire, but we will uncover something more nuanced and deeply human. You have traveled with me across time tonight, through maps erased, photos shadowed, structures hidden. The story of Tartaria isn't settled, it is unfolding. In the next episode, we will dive deeper, examining specific case studies of domed exhibition halls, propaganda in architectural history, and living descendants who claim stories passed in whispered traditions. Sleep with the awareness that history bears silent witnesses. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you won't miss what emerges next. Until then, Let the ruins in your mind remind you that silence isn't absence, it's calling out for remembrance.